I believe that in some aspects, maybe that the martial arts have become too rigid. I think sometimes the coaches, and in some cases even the athletes, have become too rigid. It would be easy to attack the traditional martial arts and say, yeah, you know what, no one does this anymore, and no one does this anymore. And that is very true. No one does that anymore. And that is, I mean, you don't get much more rigid than that. So, yeah. But even with your MMA gyms, you know, you've got some instructors that just don't have a flexibility with their training. You've got some guys who might say, well, we're doing MMA, so we don't need to train gi, and we don't train gi because we do MMA. Well, that's pretty rigid, you know? Right there, that's just, boom, you just imposed a limitation on how you train. And you should train the gi. Using myself as an example, there was a time when I, for no reason, eliminated the hammer fist from my arsenal. And it was because I was doing a lot of boxing at the time. So here it is. I started with, Tang Sudo and some Kung Fu, and then started doing Jeet Kune Do, and all of those arts incorporated a hammer fist. And then once I started boxing competitively, I eliminated the hammer fist for no reason, just not doing it. There, so even I got trapped in that. I was very stuck. And then now these days, it's come full circle. I'm like, you know what? We should be hitting people at this angle and, crossing and hooking, and of course uppercuts, and without our jab, we'd be lost. But these days, you want to think about just using the whole body as this weapon. You're striking people with the knuckles, the inner forearm, the outer forearm, the hammer fist. Not so much the back fist, because you don't want to smash the back of your hand, but every angle of the elbow, headbutts if it's self-defense and street fighting. And even in the original inception of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, headbutts were allowed. So I think the whole take what works and discard what's useless that we use in Jeet Kune Do, I believe that is the way to go if we're talking all of it. That's your formula. You use that to guide you with your mixed martial arts training for sport, and you use it to guide you for your training for self-defense in the street. Try it. Just make sure that, try it all. Just make sure that it's effective immediately. Make sure that it's not telegraphed. Make sure that the movements are economical and efficient. Make sure that they do damage. And if you're incorporating those principles in with your training, then yeah, rigidity is not a concern then. And then of course, you know what? I would say probably in every single solitary self-defense encounter that I have had in the last 3-4 years, every time the potential occurs for there to be danger that I get into, I think to myself, what would Master Renato Laranja do? And that's what I do. I think, what would he be doing? Porra, caralho. So there, I would ask what he does, and I would go and use his model and his example.